All right, 5 o'clock having arrived, we'll go ahead and officially call the meeting to order. Is the meeting been properly posted and will be taken?
Yes.
Before we get too far along, I just wanted to take a moment to welcome Jackie Bush to her first planning commission meeting. Thank you, Jackie, for accepting the invitation to join all this. And for those that aren't aware, she's filling out the unexpired term of Deb Alder. So thank you to Deb Alder for her time here. But welcome, Jackie.
Thank you.
With that, item number 2, our approval of the minutes, 2.1. Our approval of the minutes from the November 6th, 2023 meeting. Is there a motion?
So moved.
There's a motion.
I'll second.
And a second. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Item number 3 are communications. Is there any other communications other than what I had shared earlier? So with that, we'll move on to item number 4, public hearing, review, and possible recommendation regarding the Blue Oak Holdings LLC. 4.1 is public hearing on a request to consider a conditional use petition to allow for construction of a 4-unit multifamily residential building defined as a townhouse land use at 111 North Terrace Street in the residential mixed 8 RM8 zoning district. Again, applicant Blue Oak Holdings. And so with that, I would go ahead and open the public hearing at this time and have staff.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, so this was at 111 North Terrace Street, and we were looking to have this continued, is the correct term? Because the applicant has decided he wanted to make some changes, and staff has requested some more information from him. So we're hoping to have this on January or February.
Thank you. We've got some additional guests with us this evening, so I'm gonna go out on a limb and say maybe it was because of this issue. And so you just heard our staff say that we're gonna continue this. Since you didn't make the effort to come out, I would allow you to say comments on this issue and take it into consideration, or you can just join us next month, whatever your preference is. Is there anyone that would like to speak? And if so, I would invite you to come up to the podium and just announce your name and address for the record, or again, you're welcome to join us next month when looks like we continue the public hearing. Are there anyone that wish to speak at this time on this issue? Okay, seeing and hearing none, then we're going to keep the public hearing open, and there's no need to, I would actually accept a motion to officially carry this over to next month. If there's someone that would like to make that motion. Okay, there's a motion to carry and continue the public hearing to January 8th, 2024 for the planning commission meeting at 5 p.m. And is there a second to that motion?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, seeing and hearing none, all those in favor of that motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. So no need to take on 4.2 at this time, and we'll move on to item number 5, which is a public hearing to review and possible recommendation as it relates to Sean Brandenburg. 5.1, public hearing on a request to consider a conditional use petition to allow for construction of a 2-unit residential building defined as a 2-flat land use at 407 South Main Street in the residential single-family RS-5 zoning district. Again, applicant Sean Brandenburg. At this time, I would go ahead and open the public meeting hearing, and staff can get us started.
Yes, great. Good evening. This is an application for a 2-unit building in the RS5 zoning district, which requires a conditional use permit. Thank you very much. How's that sound? Sounds the same to me, but if it sounds better to you. Great. So this is a conditional use permit for a 2-unit building. This particular application meets all of our bulk and density requirements in that zoning district. The only minor issue is that because we will require 5 parking spaces for this 2-unit building, and in order to accomplish that, we can fit 4 in the driveway. And the site plan includes a future garage. And so in order to get that 5th parking space, the applicant has agreed to pave the garage pad at the same time as the driveway, so that we can get 5 or probably 6 parking spaces in that location. And then that gives them the ability to start the garage a little bit later and still be compliant with the code and provide at least 5 parking spaces for residents. We've noted a few other conditions of approval in the staff report, just confirming that the driveway and garage need to be paved in a dust-free surface. Noting that there's some gravel in the front yard that should be removed and reseeded as lawn. Again, ensuring that we have 5 spaces on the site plan when they have occupancy, and then also confirming with the Director of Public Works that we have an appropriately sized driveway approach that meets city code. And staff recommends approval.
Any questions for staff this time? Okay. Go through it, sorry.
I'm not sure what's the field. I have a couple of questions. First one's about the parking. The 4 vehicles are going to be parking in the lot, I guess, leading up to the structure. Are they such that the other vehicles can get in and out?
That's a great point. So we do allow for stacked parking in driveways. But they would have to coordinate with the landlord about not parking one another in when they do that.
So I guess the answer to that is no. The last guy in's pretty much got to be the first guy out.
Correct.
That seems a little problematic.
I think we could look at that and consider. We probably need to talk to the property owner about how they want to handle that, but I agree that that could be problematic.
But there isn't anything within the city code that speaks to that one.
Offhand, I don't think so.
Is it only wide enough for 2 cars? Or do you think it might be wide enough for 3 so that one could kind of zip and then through?
Mhm.
I don't think there's anything in our code, but usually when it's a 2-unit, one person has the one lane and the other unit has the other lane. So it's not like you're gonna have the person from downstairs blocking the person from upstairs. The 2 car, and they might not necessarily even have 5 cars, like.
Well, we're here too, and
Yeah.
she doesn't drive.
Right,
So
the
one-
applicant is
one
here
occupant
also.
doesn't even have a car.
We'll call on you to answer the questions in a minute, but yes, go ahead.
I just, I think this is a great point.
Mhm.
I think we need to remember that, the development's forever,
Yeah.
not for the current tenants. Secondly, I think the sensitivity around, the parking issue and the garage issue is an appropriate one. Because while we provide for multi-unit approvals, right? One of the problems living in a neighborhood, everything north of downtown, which provides for multi-tenant buildings, pushing everybody to the street is a problem. And I think we should address, I'm not talking about it in the context of this building, but we should address making sure there's adequate off-street parking, not places. Okay, so, a parking lot provides enough off-street parking that's convenient, right? To Wolf's Point, you could provide 6 spaces if you allow them to put in an asphalt driveway all the way to the back of the property, single lane, right? But it's unusable parking. So I think we need to either have you guys think about that or understand whether or not we have to provide for better language. That's a problem.
I think that makes a lot of sense. In the case of this site plan, I think the approach that T recommended of, west side or, left side is for this tenant, right side is for that tenant, should work in this situation, but we've got a multifamily situation where there's more than 2 units, that wouldn't work in this situation.
If you, I'm sorry, you started this, Will, so if I'm jumping in on that, the other, I don't understand, the garage doesn't solve the problem, right? Because the garage becomes, we need to understand under what provisions different tenants or different, like we're gonna address later, condo owners get to use that garage, right? And if the garage becomes the sole purview of the owner's unit, right? Then, having multiple parking places in front of it that the owner doesn't want the tenant to use becomes a problem, right? And so, I think we should, I just would like to understand your guys' thinking about that whole parking situation.
So the parking spaces need to be available to the tenants. So if the, and I'm not sure if in your scenario, the owner was one of the tenants or if they're off, they live somewhere else. But in this situation, if the owner was storing things in the garage or somehow made those parking spaces unavailable to the tenants, they'd be out of compliance with the zoning ordinance. So they need to have at least 5, if not more, spaces available to the tenants occupying the building.
Right, and we've spent a lot of time in the last couple of meetings talking about we're not able to police that stuff. Right? And so counting garage parking that soon becomes storage that we're not gonna police, okay, means that we don't have enough spaces here. Because operationally, we're counting spaces, but we're never gonna ensure that they're actual spaces.
Any other?
I have a question for you. Yes, we talked about the garage and of course, putting a concrete surface up on the property garage. Why, and the garage to be built later? Why aren't they building the garage at the same time they do the building? It only would make sense.
I'm not sure. I think it's probably just cost savings.
I know why.
We're gonna find out.
We'll find out real well.
I'll say I don't know.
Kevin?
I have another staff question, okay? And that is, when I looked at these plans, and I'm not, I am not a builder, architect, or anything like that, right?
Right.
So it's built on slab, the way it's outlined, right? Where are the utilities located?
I didn't think
Yeah.
about that. Did you?
No, so, at this point, I'm gonna end up requesting some additional information when it comes to the building, and right now, we're just going through the zoning part of it, obviously, because I'm not issuing the building permit. But maybe the applicant is here, so maybe we should have her come up to answer some of these questions she might know.
No, I mean, there's a plan review by staff before you submitted it, right?
Right, from the outside, but I mean, like, I'm gonna be requesting information from a building standpoint for like wind loads, snow loads, and
So the answer to my question is, we don't know where the utilities, HVAC and electrical are.
correct, I do not know where they are at this time.
And it referenced pole building here, and I'm not, the other element I'm not good at is, I know pole probably refer to a structural type, but I'm used to it as a non-technical term for a barn. And
Yeah, so there's multiple different ways that you can build things today that aren't necessarily what I would say that someone's like the standardized way of building things, but as long as they meet the UDC code, they are able to, it's kind of a new thing. They call them like barnuminiums and different types of things, but as long as they're meeting the UDC code, they would be fine.
And I have one last math question. Do we do any architectural review? Is there any architectural specification for the exteriors?
Right. So like, if you look at the facade or the elevation drawings, it's probably not the most beautiful building. The city does not have architectural design standards for single family or two family development.
So that's bad on us in the plan. So we need to get to work on that.
Any other questions for staff, comments? Yes.
Are there any requirements for storage for tenants to be built into the facility?
Not that I'm aware of.
So that's just something that's an additional perk? Normally there'd be a garage. In this case, because it's being put on a slab, there is no garage, or sorry, basement. There is no basement. I'm looking at this and it's essentially a plan to simplify tenant space. When I see pole barns, that's what I see. And Kevin's right. Pole building is definitely something that people can use to create a livable space if it's done correctly. I've seen pole barns put up with houses built inside them. I know that sometimes containers from shipping containers are modified to be able to create new homes or things like that. The question I have is whether or not that meets any standards we have in the city moving forward.
Well, in terms of the zoning ordinance, we don't have specific requirements for, you have to have a basement or storage for your tenants or garage space for your tenant storage. That is something we could look at. We do have regulations about outdoor storage of equipment and recreational vehicles, so they would need to store those within compliance with the code. But historically, we've relied on builders to provide basements and storage for their tenants, kind of just as a market demand, as the market demanded it. So we haven't really addressed it in the code.
I think our code really just addresses minimum square footage.
Yeah, thank you. Our code does address minimum square footage for residential units.
And
Yeah, there's some space on the first floor and on the second floor. It's not, it's a 10-foot by 6-foot room that has no purpose except for, looks like maybe a washer dryer in there. It's for insert storage, but your point's well taken. If there's no garage,
Well, even if there is a
even if
garage,
there is a garage, well, we know how big the garage is.
Right.
There's no place to put it in, except to sit out on the side yard.
there's also no place to put lawnmowers or snow blowers or anything else for maintenance for the building. Is that included in there? I'm concerned that the garage would be used to meet the expectations of parking and then not be available due to other necessities.
So there is a garage size on there, sorry.
So at this time, our code doesn't address any of that.
Yes, ma'am.
so, so we'll get, I mean, we have to continue on with that. So my perspective about this is that, when I opened this, I definitely wanted to do what we permit, which is create a 2-flat in this environment. I think my questions, I can only speak for myself, is given that this is, I think in all the time that I've been on the plan commission, the first time we're confronting one, I don't think we necessarily have thought it through well. And and I'm talking about me, I'm not talking about you guys or the applicant, right? Because I think, and I spent some time in the neighborhood and spent some time, there, thought about our neighborhood. And it makes sense to me that this is a good use. I think we need to make sure that we have the right provisions in this kind of use, period, irrespective of neighborhood type.
Any other questions, comments?
Kind of springboarding off what Kevin just said, I also think we have a responsibility for how this looks in our community, what it says about our community. I'm having a lot of difficulty, with a recommendation, to council based upon the design. And maybe it's a bias towards that word pole building. We all see that as an outbuilding somewhere. And the other one is serious concerns about parking.
Well, in terms of single family and two family design standards, we have some models that we could look at that would address building materials that would be desirable or required. We also have provisions that we can look at related to number of windows and doors, the size of windows and doors, and the provisions requiring trimmed windows. And this one has a pretty defined entrance, but sometimes that's an issue with these types of buildings. So that's something we could bring forward at a later date for your review.
Yes.
I think that's important to do. I know that previous council made the decision when we put up a water pump facility, building, to actually include a roof that looked like it fit into the community so that the people living nearby would feel comfortable with a home being built in the future. That was forethought that I thought was very well taken, and I don't want to miss an opportunity to carry that forward.
Alright, any other comments, questions for staff? Otherwise, I would welcome anyone in attendance who wishes to speak on this issue at this time. I would ask that we try to come to the podium for recording so it comes a little clearer to those who are watching, and just again, state your name and address for the record.
Hi. I'm Janet Graves. My nephew is Sean Brandenburg. He's the one that's building it. It's my sister Sylvie Brandenburg, and she's gonna be living there. The first time they told me a pole barn or a pole building, you guys nuts? And I've seen some of them that look like barns that look really cute. But when we went to Menards and looked at all the different plans, they call them pole buildings, but there's no way you could tell it was a pole building. They're beautiful homes. Some of them look nicer than what I live in, you know, and it's like, I thought that was all given to everybody, like the pictures of the house, because it's a beautiful home. His first idea of getting the garage, he wanted to get this all done. His intentions of building a 2-car garage, but an extended one, like I have at my house where it's an extra 8 feet long, so that she would have places to put the lawnmower, the snow blower, stuff like that. So he has intentions of doing that. His funding was for the house right now, but before she moves in there, she wanted to have the garage. She has to have that built. It could be a stipulation, maybe. I don't know.
Sean is waiting for his funds to come back in the amount of, he's buying it from Menards, and he gets the 11% back.
So when he buys the whole plan for the whole house, he'll have enough to even build the garage.
Yeah.
Any
Anyway,
questions at this time for? Otherwise, thank you for.
Okay.
Providing some additional information. I would ask if there are any other.
So, I've got one more question. So is your plan to live in the upper or the lower unit?
Lower.
Okay, and what's the plan with the upper unit?
The lady that lives next door, her son's gonna rent it upstairs.
So
He's
it'll be
renting
rent-
somewhere else and he's all
Yeah.
excited about it. He's actually got her snow blower and her lawnmower in his garage right now. And he's all excited that she's gonna have a rental there and he's like, I wanna rent it, I wanna rent it.
Okay,
So
cool.
we already have somebody that wants to rent that lives, his mom lives next door,
Great.
so.
Will, did you?
Raised the question, T, what are the ADA requirements for a two-story building, new two-story construction?
So when it comes to single family homes, it's not the same as like when you're in a 3 unit or above. We do have certain door sizes that you need to meet in order to get into a bathroom on the first floor. But it's, there's not as many ADA requirements that you would think. It's more so like when you get into the 4 units like Toronto's doing and the 77 units, but it's basically like the same, it'd be the same codes that you would have in a single family home. Cause this is a 2 unit. So a 2 unit, according to the code, the building code is considered a single family home. So even though it's a 2 unit.
So there are no special requirements for, access egress for the second floor?
So there are some requirements for egress, but when it comes to the ADA, it's just pretty much door sizes.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Are there any other citizens or tenants that wish to speak on this topic at this time? Seeing and hearing none, then with that, I would close the public hearing and move on to item 5.2, which is consider a conditional use petition to allow for construction of a 2 unit residential building defined as a 2-flat land use at 407 South Main Street in the residential single family RS-5 zoning district. Again, applicant Kowski, representing the property owner Sean Brandenburg. At this time, I would entertain thoughts from the committee. Anyone care to make a motion?
I would like to make a motion to move to the council with the existing recommended actions on there. But I also would like to put in the fact that I would like the garage to be built. I don't know if I want to talk about time frame or occupancy, but I guess I would say within a year of it being built I'm just looking for some feedback on that. I feel the garage needs to go in before the tenants move in or shortly thereafter. So I'm looking really some help there.
That's a good point. There is a motion. Is there
I would second
a second? Some further discussion?
it. I think we also, I'm comfortable with that. If we also, provide some perspective to staff that they should be talking about, that, these plans aren't what we're approving, right? And you guys already noted that you've got several iterations of the plan to go through. So I think we should make sure that staff clearly hears, we want the utility placement to not eat into the tenant spaces or the owner spaces, however they're characterized. Any improvements in architecture, would be greatly greatly appreciated, right? And, uh, I think that, a provision between staff and the builder, about, how parking is assigned, is important. And I don't think that that's the level of minutia that we should get into, right? I mean, and I want to just recognize that, we're giving vague direction, but, as a follow-up to this, I think this spring, like on the 4-unit, on, that was postponed, on any other, because people are gonna see this flat and they're gonna go, that's great use. And I agree with them, that's great use, right? And what we've seen here is that this is the first one that's come through. Our zoning and building rules aren't clear enough on what we would want in this situation. And I think that you guys should be a little bit, aggressive here to make sure the builder meets something that we're proud of and that the neighborhood and the community, to Will's point, is happy with. And then come back and talk to us about how we get more specific in the future about these structures.
My motion was a little vague on when the garage should go up, I believe. I said within the first year or on occupancy. I should make it upon occupancy.
Okay. And I second.
Second, everyone's clear on that. Motion and second, and any other discussion?
I'm just concerned whether or not my thought fits into discussion on the motion, but I'd like to formalize what Kevin is speaking to, and formally request from staff some type of a architectural design standard as well as an appropriate parking standard be presented to the planning commission for our review.
Yes.
I think that's going to be challenging because in this particular case, we're looking at a particular structure, particular set of plans. And the fact that we don't have this across the board means that we should be looking at this across the board for all structures that are being put up. And that is a pretty big undertaking and something that I don't think the staff could just put together short notice or when.
I don't know, Jackie seemed to think that she had something in her hip pocket.
I had taken this to mean you wanted something that applied citywide to all future structures. We could deliver that, but I think that would not be on the timeline of this project.
Yeah, not really that important.
Okay, right.
It seems to be the consensus here. Thank you for that, and thank you for the clarity. Any other discussion? Everyone clear on the motion? With that, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Right. With that, we'll move on to item number 6 under business. 6.1 is considered a request for a 2-unit land redivision by condominium plat for the duplex property at 303-305 Linden Lane.
Mr. Mayor, Commission, included in your packet is a proposed condominium plat. This would take an existing duplex that's under construction on Linden Lane, and if council approves, would split that into a 2-unit condominium. The city attorney did have some recommendations for clarifications on the condo declarations. Those are actually amended and were sent in today.
Any questions for Mark?
As a point of interest, had that not been sent in and accepted by the association, how does the condominium bylaws affect us as a commission?
It's one of the requirements of the municipal code for subdivisions. in condominiums that the city is supposed to review and approve the plat and the declarations.
Yes, Ken.
Well, so, Will, as an example, the condominium, rules, or declarations impacted the plan commission, related to, argument on, condominiums down by the city garage when certain people wanted to rent down there. And so we were asked to say whether or not they could rent based upon the difference between the city ordinance and the association. So every once in a while, we run into them.
Interesting.
All right, any other questions? Or then your motion?
I'll make a motion to recommend to the common council the approval of the proposed 2-unit land re-division by condominium plat as presented for the duplex property at 303-305 Linden Lane, subject to the city attorney's recommended corrections to the declarations.
There's a motion, is there a second?
I'll second it.
There's a motion and a second, any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Item 6.2 is review and discussion of concept plan for step 2 of a planned infill development at 2525 East Geneva Street, the former Labar Farm, including proposed land use. Dave, you want to get us started?
Hope you are well. Dave Sakaris, representing KSP Family, LLC. I'm here to talk about just informally the property that's just north of Lake Lawn. So this is approximately 268 acres or so, which is bordered by on the south Highway 50, the airport on the west, County F the east, Mound Road on the north. It was, just give you a little history on that, probably about 3-4 years ago, the city approached the owners, which although it's a different LLC, it is primarily the same owners of Lake Lawn. The city approached them looking to annex that large parcel into the city limits. So that was done on the request of the city. That happened about 2 years ago, the summer of 21, and that was put in under a temporary zoning of rural holdings, a rural holding. And so really what we've done is over the last several years, the property that we had at Lake Lawn, that was pretty much those open acre parcels that were really between our Lakewood building and the marina that we are now developing with the townhome development, that had really been a storage area and a maintenance building use. So everything from the boats that we rent out to guests, to the piers that come out for the season, to supplies and storage of tables and chairs and firewood that we use for some of the bonfire pits along the lakefront, and tent supplies and our lawnmowers and our snow blowers. All that was stored on the Lake Lawn property. So several years ago, to get in preparation for the development of the townhomes, the single family, I should say, that started to be moved across the street. So that work began even prior to us annexing that property into the city. So what we want to do.
What started before you moved stuff over before you annexed into the city and got approval for the,
So no, what we did was, we started to use that land when it was purchased for some auxiliary resources of Lake Lawn. So the existing buildings that were over there, there's been no new buildings put up. but those started to be used for some additional resources of Lake Lawn.
Thank you.
So at this point, it's preliminary conversation of just the part of this large parcel, whether it's anywhere from 15 to 40 acres that's on the southern part of looking at what that use could be for the future. We know that right now, this would just be a temporary use, meaning that the storage supplies that we have for equipment, for boats, for like those supplies that I talked about, we look to be using kind of that parcel for the next like 3 to 5 years as a temporary thing. And then as the development finishes on the lakefront with the single family homes, then we'd be coming to the city with a whole new plan, a whole new concept for a much larger development across the street. So what we want to do is just make sure that we're in compliance for the different equipment, different supplies that we have there, and just kind of talk about that there would be sections that we would want to fence around for some storage. We would have some additional use of storage and supplies, some of the things that I just mentioned that would normally have been on the resort side that basically just moving across the street. So it's very preliminary conversation in regards to moving that forward. We've had meetings with the city staff earlier this year, which have just talked about a comprehensive plan adjustment for the city that would be forthcoming in the future months and coinciding exactly with a GDP and a PID for future use of that particular area.
When you, go ahead, Karen.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, when you said you had conversations, with staff or meetings, I believe you're gonna follow up. This is obviously an update for us tonight, but follow up this Thursday, as early as this Thursday at the next staff review development.
Yes.
Meeting to show and further discuss and show when you say mapping out certain areas, what that might, look like. And Jackie, I'm sure you'll have some questions that you always do, regardless who the person is that comes to those types of meetings and stuff. But I just wanted for the committee's benefit, know that when you talk about the communications and the meetings, it's not like we're gonna hear from you tonight, right? And then we're not gonna hear from you for a few months from now. You're as
Yes,
busy
I
as a
I
bull.
will be at the meeting on Thursday morning with the city staff.
Yes.
Yeah, you're right. We're not gonna hear from them tonight and then not hear from them again. We heard this same thing in June, which is why we're here, right? And in June, because it was appropriate that staff sent the same report to us that they sent to us at our June 5th meeting when we discussed this, when there were questions about last spring storage on what is characterized as rural holding, right? And at that point, the agreement was that you were gonna come back and discuss what were the permanent, and right now permanent in your mind is 3 to 5 years. Solution was to what is not an approved use of storage on that property. And what brought us here tonight was the observations by community members and staff members that, and committee members that, once again, this winter, the storage was going ahead the same way and no provisions had been made based upon the conversations that we had in June. Okay, so the point that hasn't been communicated, right, from you guys tonight is what happened from June to November.
So since June, I believe we've had 2 meetings with staff I believe one of those occurred the end of August or maybe September. So there has been additional conversations that have taken place. And we wanted to make sure that a plan that we were bringing to you, a plan that we'd be bringing to the city council is going to be a temporary use plan with not spending a lot of money on development there that would be redone. I know in your mind, what I'm using temporary is, different categories.
5 years.
Yes,
is it?
yes.
Right, so.
So
the answer-
there has been additional meetings that have
Well,
taken
yeah,
place.
but nothing's happened, and so we got the same condition. Right, and from your guys' perspective, are we, and trust me, at our last meeting, our questions were accountability questions equally to our staff and to you guys, okay? And so my question to you is your perspective that, we have held you up from being compliant in that zoning area? Of providing some kind of approved condition for storage in an unapproved zoning district?
So since June, with those additional conversations we've had, we've become aware that the comprehensive plan for the city needs to be modified. And,
But no, we're not talking about the comprehensive plan, we're talking about the temporary plan. In June, we agreed there was gonna be a temporary condition there. Thank you.
Richard Trohorst, I represent KSB as well.
Right.
What David said, comprehensive plan, we have to rezone. The question is, what is the best district to rezone? Because a planned infill, would you allow me to
Yeah,
comment? The planned refill is not a district, it's an overlay. So
I understand.
we're looking at, should it be neighborhood residential or neighborhood, a regional, commercial? Are we rezoning? Now, the comprehensive plan has to be changed. That's basically the map. We have to change the map. We have to go through a rezone with a map. Do we do 14 acres? Do we 40 acres? We've outlined the uses that we want to put to the property, which are continued what we've done. We're not introducing any new uses that we haven't already had.
As the body who makes those decisions, we completely understand, okay, what you
So
have
our
to decide.
So our question.
That wasn't our question in June. That wasn't our question last month. Our question in June and our question last month was, what are you doing to address your non-compliance in the process of getting to your organization's answers about what has to happen ultimately to that property within our plan?
Well, I'm not sure what you're saying. What are we doing? We have not discontinued the use because we've had it there. It was there before we annexed. We annexed not for the purpose of doing this. We annexed for the purpose of working with the city because they wanted to loop the water. We would still be in the county if we hadn't come to the city or the city hadn't come to us and said, "Would you please annex?" So we've annexed. We've come to you with what our uses have been historically and what we would like to do with them. The temporary ones have been historically the same uses. What we would like is feedback from the plan commission to saying, we're all right with those uses, but we need to know what area it's gonna be and how long it's gonna be, and we will do that. We need to get a legal description. We've been in touch with the surveyor, Warren Hansen, to provide a legal description, but we need to know, get some feedback as to what area the plan commission would like that. That's why we're here for an informal thing. We've met with the staff. We would like to work with the city. We're not trying to create a problem or introduce anything new. It's just a procedural process. What zoning would you like us to use? If that's something that's compatible, what area? We have when Dave said it could be 15 to 20 acres in this corner, or it could be the whole southern end. This area, we don't know what's gonna happen. It could be residential, it could be additional commercial, it could be both. It could be some recreational.
So we're talking about 268 acres here. That
No,
is
we're
a-
not.
No, is a
We're
lot.
talking about the non-compliance area that's all the board has ever talked about.
Okay,
And so you can talk all day about talking to the council or talking to the city or talking to staff about what is your hope for the future plan. We're saying, what are you gonna do about the non-compliance area? The non-compliance area, quickly explained, is storage on non-permitted acreage.
Right, and so we're asking what? Is it all right for that? Are you saying that you will work with us on this? This is
So
what the
in
purpose of
June, when
this.
you asked that, you specifically asked that question, the
I-
commission said,
I don't recall her being in June. I appeared
Who-
at a
who was
staff
there in
meeting and I wrote a letter to the
well,
staff
excuse me, when your
saying,
letter appeared in June,
okay.
yeah.
saying this is what we proposed, and we still do that. But we-
These exact same uses were on the pre-annexation agreement. So the uses hasn't changed in 4 years of what we have in that land. With it going in the city, now that's under a new set of guidelines.
Right, and
Okay,
so,
And so that was
the question
known.
was, are you gonna screen?
Eventually, this would be some type of
So in
screening.
June, you said eventually.
I wasn't here in June, I'm sorry.
Well, no one's here, I guess
We were
no
at the
one's
staff meeting.
accountable.
We were at the
So
staff
yours,
meeting.
do you represent the organization or not?
Were you at
Yes.
were you at the staff meeting?
No.
But I was, and we discussed it. It is
So
fairly
I asked you a
naturally.
simple question. Did our staff not direct you that this area should be screened?
We discussed with the staff that there was already natural screening. There's a tree line there. There was an issue that in the winter, there's not as much foliage, so there's more sight, that we would have it orderly, it's blocked in the summer. We did not intend to store anything on the ag land between the highway and that area.
Natural
And
buffer.
we had a natural buffer, and they said that that would qualify. We may
Thank
have
you.
to.
That's the only answer I needed all night. Thank you.
Okay,
Any other questions? I know this is an update. I guess one thing that I would be, do you, oh, I'm sorry.
You did
Go ahead,
answer,
Matt.
you did answer my question. Is it your intention to use that property that you're on now, on the north side of that buffer? Is for storage for all equipment,
Where it is now,
where it is now?
yes.
correct.
For storage of all equipment now and forever.
No, for a short, it's temporary.
3 to 5 years.
Where are you gonna put storage if it's not there?
It would be designed
After
into
that
this,
period of time?
into this plan. It might not be on the Highway 50, it might be moved closer to Mound Road when we look at the entire plan for the
Well,
whole.
it's gonna be somewhere on the 200+ acres.
Exactly.
Right, it would be set up for a storage area. A permanent storage area, not a temporary storage.
We need the maintenance uses for the resort. We don't have that on the lakefront now with that development.
I guess my question would be, it's realistic, you know, obviously you're gonna be here on Thursday at 10 a.m.
Yes.
to meet with staff. They have, for our timeline, a more of a concrete kind of plan in place, proposal that by January's planning commission, this committee can weigh in on, ask for additional questions and.
Right. I'm not sure, I'm sorry for interrupting. I'm not sure that's necessary, right? We got the answer I think we needed, this evening. And I think that, after we're finished with this, we should talk a little bit, as a commission. I understand the complexity that they're dealing with of trying to, plan this area, right? And and I think we should support the efforts that they have in place to plan the area intelligently across time, right? I just don't think we, as a commission, got correct information about whether or not they were whether or not they were living up to or not living up to, what they had agreed. So I want to talk about that in a little.
Sure.
I do want to talk about one other compliance area. At one point, the organization committed when they were, and this is part of the history, right? At one point, the organization committed when they converted what is one of the, what used to be, a glass, operation that you converted into a body shop, right? In the city. So it was Bauer Glass. You bought that building, you converted it. You asked us, to, permit, change in it.
So we're talking about the
No, I'm
address
talking
at
about a
25,
different
25.
matter, different matter. You guys are in front of us, right?
Well,
And
that's the Cunis.
Yeah, that's a
Cunis
different matter.
automobile
Yeah.
building.
This is different LLC.
Totally different. But what's your concern? We would like to address it.
you guys committed that you were gonna eliminate a drive. You never eliminated.
That's
Yeah,
not appropriate at this meeting.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't care. You may have a problem with that issue. You can't, this is not the issue here.
You talked about 3 to 5 years for completion. During that period of time, what are you planning to do with the vehicles? Are you planning on leaving them there, the boats, the short-term storage? I have concerns about creating a brown zone. One of the reasons why we have these restrictions in the city is to make sure that appropriate use for storage is appropriate. We want to protect not just today, not just 3 years, not just 5 years, but for future generations of the city. And we want to make sure that we're doing everything correctly. So how do you plan to address the concerns with this storage area? It talks in here about using it for maintenance, talks in here about fixing golf carts, other things like that. There's a lot of components like oils, and gases, and different things like that. So how is that being met in this storage area when it's still not sufficient?
I think we discussed that with the staff as well, and we agreed that we were not going to change oils. We weren't gonna do anything that was
No engine
environmental.
work.
No engine work on that, and that will be part of our precise implementation plan. In other words, when we set this, there will be restrictions where we're not gonna do that. It is a temporary thing. We don't intend to, as we said, do engine work, to do anything that's gonna be environmentally a problem. We agreed we wouldn't do any burning of brush over there. It was gonna be storage of like firewood that's used on the lakefront, as David said. And we discussed that in pretty much detail, but I guess to get it done, to get the exact legal description and where we're gonna do it and how we're gonna do it has obviously taken us longer than we had planned on. But I know that David's been in touch with the staff. And it probably isn't going fast enough, but we'll kick it in gear.
And I want to be clear, I'm very happy that Lake Lawn is a part of our community, and I want that to be successful. We have an obligation to look out for the city way beyond my term here or any of our terms. We have to think about that. So that's the reason why we're bringing up these questions. We want you to be healthy, we want the community to be healthy, and we don't want to burn the equity out of either one of them. Just to be clear, that's why I'm asking these questions. I have issues when we put timeframes on them and they are not met. I've seen that happen time and time again with my short term here at the city, not just from Lake Lawn, but from other components where the last little bit has been drawn out. And then we have to come back and play the bad guy. I don't want to see that happen anymore. I want this to be successful, and I want this to be healthy for you and for the community. So what sort of assurances can you give us that 3 to 5 years is realistic?
So I want to clarify the 3 to 5 years. So just to give you assurance, the development, single-family homes is going much quicker than what we had planned on the lakefront area. That's been going very, very well. That is going to move these other things along faster. So when I said 3 to 5 years, what I meant is this section that's in the southern quadrant of that parcel, west, what we adapt that current use for would be approximately for 3 to 5 years. We're not looking to add, at this point, more buildings, more structures, because it might not fit in the overall dynamic plan of that larger 268 acre parcel. So that was what I wanted to clarify for 3 to 5. It doesn't mean, it just means that it will be something else, and that maintenance area may move to another area within that parcel.
Thank you.
When do you think you have that plan done?
Of the current use,
I mean, of the parcel, in generalities, I mean,
well, we have a goal because we know the process going through, with the city would be quite lengthy. I would say within the next 6 months would be an estimate of having something to come that's outside of this current use.
I understand.
Yes.
Any other questions? Comments at this time? Otherwise, thank you, gentlemen, for coming in and
Thank you.
spending some time with us this evening and updating us on, I know the conversation will continue.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Can I say something, Brian? Yeah. Can I?
Yeah, you wanna come up here?
Sure. All right, I can hear a little bit, but here, let me say something. You're right. Him not getting it done is probably wrong, right? And unfortunately, staff didn't always call me on certain things. They went through the team. So Dave's working on getting, association, things handled. He's working with the builders. He's working on a lot of different things that we don't have a master plan for across the street. But what we want to do is we want to improve Delavan. We want to bring whatever's best for that area across the street. We want it to be a master plan that's good for the whole community. So we're still working on that, and Dave's a big part of that. That's why he's stepping away from Lake Lawn a little bit more, so he can help me, do the right things for the community and for what's best for that property. But you're right. In June, we make a commitment. We stand here. We don't get it done. And now we're sitting back here in November. I don't blame you. I'd be pissed off too. That's the first thing. As soon as I heard about it, I said, Dave, what is going on? Let Torhorst and I take care of it. We'll get this moving. So we called Warren Hansen, start the survey, and we can't tell you we're going to do something and not do it. That's ridiculous. So I apologize for that. It's basically Dave's juggling a little bit. So it's not the right way to handle things. And I think I've expressed that to you guys. We're not disrespecting the city in any way. We're trying to do what's right for the city and what's right for Lake Lawn and what's right for that end of the community that we can have an influence on. That's what we're trying to accomplish. I told him I'll be dead by the time half of this stuff is all done, but we'll try to lay it out the right way and work together with staff. As far as any other driveways, give me the information and remind me what it was. It was probably before T, and it was probably before Brian. It was probably, Ryan probably remembers part of it. I might remember it, I might not, depends on the day. So give me that information, I'll get you the answer on it. But any questions you guys have, I have no problem answering. Sometimes I hear things from, I know different things coming. I'm like, where is this all coming from? Is there an axe to grind with me? Is there an axe to grind? My whole heart is to do what's right for the whole. If we screw up something, I told T lately, tell me. Don't tell my person who told that person who told that person. Just tell me, call me. He's got my cell phone and I'll get it fixed, because I don't want any, if anybody is more, how do I say this the right way? Wanting to make sure that Delavan is right. When I leave this earth, Delavan gave me a lot. I started off with a business that was bankrupt, and I'm trying to make friends with everybody in the community. I don't know why they're mad at me, because I'm not the one that bankrupted it. Somebody else did, but somehow, it took me a few years to get over that hump and then build stores from there and businesses from there. So my heart is in Delavan, just like other people that I know, their heart is in their own community. Mine's Delavan, Wisconsin. And so if it comes across that I'm trying to push my way through or trying to do things that aren't in the best interest of the whole, that's not true. If you ever sat with me and had lunch with me, you know that's my heart. So if I've given you that feeling because I send my team in to talk or one of my people, maybe I should come to every meeting and make sure you hear it. So if I've done anything wrong, I apologize. It's not what I want to do. So, thanks.
With that, we'll move on to, yes.
Chief, question for you regarding this property that we're talking about here. Is there anything going on in that property that's currently out of compliance?
Well, that's why we're here tonight, because there's some things that are out of compliance with the storage. I mean,
The
I,
answer is yes.
yes.
What should we be doing about it? We being staff.
Well, I would say from my department and not to speak for you guys, but I would think what you as the plan commission would want is probably for us to meet as staff this Thursday with Greg and his staff, come up with a timeline and an idea of what we're doing. And then that way, the next time we meet, I can tell you, hey, this is our plan. And then, you know, if it goes, because the main issue that we're here tonight, from my understanding is we came up with a plan and they're not executing it fast enough. Because at this point right now, staff is waiting for information from them. So I think the plan commission's real goal here is compliance, which is the goal of what everyone wants is compliance. So I think the best thing for us is to come up with a timeline, have them agree to that timeline. And if it doesn't get met by that timeline, then we need to bring down the hammer or however you want to call it. So
We keep talking about this concept plan. In fact, it's in the minutes. I don't see a plan. Maybe I didn't get it, and I didn't hear a plan. I heard a lot of discussion here, but I didn't hear anything about
well, and that's the part where we're waiting for them. We've talked about the concept and the steps that they can take to do this. They have not produced a plan for us yet, other than talking about it.
And it sounds like there has been a fair amount of discussion between Lake Lawn and between our staff.
Yes, we have had some discussions. Correct.
Unfortunately, or fortunately, the planning commission knows nothing about any of that because we're not a party to it. So
Sure.
it's difficult for us to be able to factor that in or understand it. So for me, it comes down to if it's out of compliance, what needs to be done to bring it into compliance? Maybe that's a simplistic view, but that's all I got because I know nothing about any plan.
And that's the point. Thank you all. The point was, that there was supposed to be compliance with the temporary use and the plan. So there were two misses. We understand that the plan wasn't complete because it's complex. The fact that between June and November, that there wasn't a temporary plan was the issue that we spoke about.
So am I correct in saying that 3 to 5 years to come up with a temporary plan? Or was that a 6 months to come up with a temporary plan? And it's 3 to 5 years to come up with a solution for getting back into compliance? Or it is what sort of time frame to either get into compliance or to change the zoning or give a
Courageous.
Great, I'm glad you asked that question because it is a little fuzzy. So they're out of compliance now. They need to get into compliance as soon as possible. In order to do that, they need to amend the comprehensive plan and then complete a planned infill development application, which requires a GDP and a PIP. So there's a lot of things that need to happen in order to get there. We can get that process started immediately on the city's end, but that does require the Lake Lawn to have complete applications that are to the satisfaction of the city. So that could take a little while to get all of that submitted, reviewed, maybe multiple iterations back and forth between staff and the applicant. In terms of, so let's imagine in the future, say 6 months from now, all of that is approved and the property is now in compliance with the ordinance. That would be in place indefinitely. We don't really have a way to have a temporary zoning in the timeframes that we're talking about. So 3 to 5 years isn't really something we can do with zoning. So they're basically they'll have that zoning to continue doing that indefinitely. And then, but what my recommendation is that when we do this planned infill development for this outdoor storage area, we draw that boundary very tightly to just that area where that's occurring. And so then when Lakeland's ready to do any other type of development, whether it's move storage to another location, explore residential development or mixed use, they need to come in with a new plan. And we go through this process all over again, but it could be the full 200 acres, it could be another small piece. That's something we would do when the time is right for them.
But every time they change the plan, don't we have to?
Right.
Don't we have to change our comprehensive plan?
Yeah, so that's a great question for this body to consider. For this, since this is kind of a fix, I would describe this as kind of a fix. I would recommend that we only amend the comprehensive plan for that area where this is occurring. The next time they want to do more development, we could look at changing the comprehensive plan for the whole parcel if we feel confident that they've got a plan in place that would allow us to change that category for the full 200 acres. Or we could do it piecemeal each time they've got a new idea. I personally would prefer to do it kind of a master plan. So that everything's planned.
Up to Lakeland though, to choose how much or how little of a change to the plan.
That's a good point. I think they could request what section they want to amend, but I suppose the city could today just change the comprehensive plan for whatever category the city felt was appropriate.
What they feel is appropriate.
No, wait, what we
And
said.
What makes sense for our comprehensive plan?
Mhm.
There's a line between business and the government that I think we need to maintain. We're not here to tell them how to operate their business.
Yes. I'd just like to clarify one point too, right? And irrespective of whether it was in the city or not in the city, it would be in the extraterritorial section of the city. And so whatever the plan would have been for these acres, the city would have weighed in on, right?
That's correct. Our comprehensive plan.
It's not within the boundary agreement of the town of Delavan. So the conversation related to whether or not the annexation created this future development issue is kind of irrelevant because the city of Delavan had extraterritorial approval rights on that area.
Mr. Mayor, as far as the comprehensive plan goes, I would prefer to do the master type versus piece by piece.
Yeah.
Because otherwise we could end up with a piece by piece mess. I would prefer a more master plan, even if it takes, well, we talked 6 months, but whether it's 6 months or 8 months, I'd rather see the master plan and review the comprehensive plan as one piece, maybe 2 pieces, because it's such a large section. But I wouldn't want to do 10 acres here, and then 10 acres here, and then 10 acres there. It just looks like a plan to disaster.
One thing we discussed with the applicant was potentially planned mixed use, which is our more intense mixed use category along the highway. And then perhaps a planned neighborhood north of that. So that's one option. So, it's in the city's hands. We could look at it more closely. If you would like to just amend the comprehensive plan for the whole 200 acres now, you could do that. Our process does not require them to have a complete master plan for the area in order to make that amendment. I think it would be preferred though. So that's kind of why I was saying that we should just amend a portion of the plan for the area that has a clear short-term plan. You see plan a lot. So we could talk about that if we want, because I do share your perspective that we want to avoid piecemeal amendments to the comprehensive plan.
Did you have one more point?
Yeah. Thank you, Jackie. I just wanted to let you know that this exact conversation of exactly what you were asking, Mr. DeWitt, is exactly the conversation we were having with the staff in August and September. There has not been a lot done in the last 60 days, but this was the exact conversation of how to segment this and what parcels and what we wouldn't be tied into long-term, in identifying those things.
I'd like to just clear up that we are going to address this 15 to 20 acre parcel right away. The balance of it, it could take much longer because we're talking 200 acres and we don't know what we're gonna plant, but we know that this is a problem. We know that you're getting complaints and we will get this resolved so that it is set up and we'd like to do these limited area down in the southwest corner where the activity is currently going on. And that will be, it has to be set up as a zoning district, which is permitted. You can't put a length on it, but our plan is, it's gonna be a short-term use there. We're gonna have that somewhere else. It's not gonna be in the corridor into the city. We don't wanna have that eyesore, so to speak, there. We'll get that done.
Just to be clear, your time frame on that?
Well,
fix
we have
is-
to go through this process. So we will come in with when we agree on understand what the zoning district is, we go through each step of this and move forward.
Are you thinking 6 months to come up with this? You said you were.
If the staff comes back and says, let's put it in this zoning district, and that's something we all agree to, that could be done much faster. If there's wanting to put it into a zoning district, which is gonna either not allow the things that we're doing, or not be appropriate in our eyes, we will discuss that with you. But that's kind of what this was about. If we want these uses, when we annexed it, we said this is what our intended uses are.
I understand.
We assume that this is fine, but the feedback is coming back, well, we don't want that. Right?
I'm just looking for what is a realistic time period, and if you're able to get it done faster, I'm very happy about that. I don't want to hamstring you on this, but I would like some sort of commitment so that we know what we're looking at.
I understand. So I've done zoning for a long time. Generally, if you get it done in 6 months, you work very fast. It can take 9 months to a year. I've had things go over a year, more than that in zoning. But we have to come to this meeting. This meeting is a discussion only. Then we have to go to the council with a discussion only to say, okay, yes, let's proceed further. Then we have to come back and give you a general development plan. Then we have to come back with a precise implement plan to follow these steps. Now we can combine some of those. So let's say realistically, it's gonna be 4 to 6 months, okay? Because we've done part of it.
Thank you, that's helpful. And I'd just like to clarify that fortunately, you are in the city of Delavan, and we are pretty good at moving through some of this paperwork
Unfortunately, we
on
are.
behalf of our businesses.
We signed the annexation. We're here. We wanted to be here, so. Thank you.
Thank you again, appreciate it. Okay.
Right, so I just want to point out that means that any representation that the Thursday meeting was gonna bring any clarity to it is null and void, right?
But no, it's not.
You can work on it.
That's why we're meeting on Thursday, to get the finality to some of these things, so we can do a more finite of a plan than we have now.
All right, thanks again, everyone.
To me, it sounds we should do it faster. Boom, 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 let's get it done.
We're gonna get it done.
Takes so long, but you know how that is, Mark, right? Get it done. All right,
All
sorry.
right,
Thank
thanks,
you.
everyone. Thank you, sorry. Item 6.3 is consider appointment of the planning commission representative on the Delavan Business Park Development. I will happily accept the volunteer. If someone would like to submit some name and make a motion to appoint that individual. Oh, did you want to just?
If you guys read the memo, then you got the whole thing.
Yep. You can elaborate some more, but
This is for our industrial park, any development that comes in the industrial park. We have a committee that reviews the site plans and building plans. One of the members on that committee has to be someone from the planning commission. And it cannot be Alderman Beazer because he's already on it as the aldermanic representative. I'll jump
Wish to
forward.
volunteer.
Cards.
I move to appoint,
It doesn't meet very often at all.
Yeah.
I move to appoint Bruce Dewitt as the planning commission representative on the Delavan Business Park Development Review Committee.
There's a
Second
mo-
motion.
There's a motion
It's
and
just
a
a
second. Any further discussion?
Respectively.
Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Sorry, aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
I didn't
vote, just so you know, not like I wanted it, but I didn't want to see it happen to anyone.
All right, with that, item 7, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
All right, there's a motion to adjourn, is there a second?
Second,
Excuse me,
Yes.
I object.
there's no discussion on,
No, I object to the motion. So, Ryan,
Oh,
there are two
oh,
things
we're still
missing
on-
on the agenda. Future agenda, which we can't talk about.
Right.
Future agenda items and, update on building and zoning. And I just want to point out their absences. I don't think that's good. And I think we definitely would have added as a future agenda item, 2 flat rules at some point, which we can't talk about.
I don't think we had the future agenda items on this agenda
Well,
here,
we
but
should,
Well, in fact, when I wanted to formalize
right.
that statement, I looked, I said, well, okay, I'll do it. And it's not
And that's
happening.
why I'm objecting to the adjournment.
oh, okay.
Unfortunately, since it's not on the agenda,
We can't talk
agenda,
Right.
we can't discuss it.
Right,
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 and we haven't,
and we can't get an update.
well, then we can get an update, I mean, without it being.
point of order, Mr. Mayor, I think we're in discussion on this.
All right,
I heard a motion.
there was a motion and a second, all in favor of adjournment. Please state
Aye.
Opposed, thanks everyone, oh, and happy holidays, Merry Christmas, happy holidays. to all of you.
Thank you.